Is President Trump's iron grip on the Republican Party slipping? In Indiana, Republicans in the state Senate crossed party lines to reject the redistricting effort the White House had been pushing so hard for. This is how the president reacted in defiance.
It's funny because I won Indiana all 3 times by a landslide, and I wasn't working on it very hard. Would have been nice. I think we would have picked up 2 seats if we did that. It's a great place. I love the people there. They love me. We won in a landslide all 3 times.
Now, it is not true he did not work very hard by all accounts. He'd been calling lawmakers in most reports. After this defeat, the president also took aim at the Indiana Senate Republican leader, Roderick Bray, predicting he would lose his next primary. Let's get right to the White House now. CNN's Elena Treen is there this morning. This is really a setback for the White House, their redistricting efforts.
I would actually argue, John, that this is one of the biggest defeats we've actually seen the president and his team, certainly his political team, have seen yet. They have resoundingly, Indiana Republicans, rejected this administration and the president's push to really use the Hoosier state as kind of the example to have this mid-decade redistricting push. Now, the reason this is so important is because the president and his team have made no secret of what their overall political strategy is when it comes to the midterms, and it very much has hinged on wanting to redraw seats in a number of different states. And this is really a huge loss for them. They essentially robbed them of 2 potential seats that could have gone to Republicans in the House ahead of the midterms. And of course, that is 2 seats that now they will not be able to count on for having the majority potentially and trying to win the majority again after 2026. Look, part of this, I think, and the reason this is so important because it gets to that overall strategy. And the president has really tried to use this to make sure and insulate that he can insulate House Republicans for what could be some stunning losses in next year's elections. But part of the reason that is so important is it's not only about, having control of not only the House, but potentially the Senate, how that could get in the way of really the president's ability to do any major legislation in his last 2 years. It would, of course, make him more of a lame duck president than he will already be. But it's also this idea that if Democrats end up getting control of the House, that means a lot of investigations, a lot of subpoenas, a lot of hearings on Capitol Hill, all things, of course, that the people in this White House, many of whom worked with him during his first administration as well, very much want to avoid. Now, one thing that's interesting as well, you talked about how the president said that he wasn't very much involved in this. That's not exactly true. If you looked at what his team is, I mean, the vice president, J.D. Vance, went to Indiana twice to meet with the state's Senate Republicans to try and pressure them to get behind this push. We also know that they've hosted Indiana Senate Republicans here at the White House, where many members of the president's team sat down with them and urged them to get in line behind this effort. The president himself, of course, has also been posting about this on social media all along, even at times saying that any Republican who goes against them could face what he said was a MAGA primary in the spring. All to say this is a major loss, and it also comes after other losses we've seen in places like Ohio, Utah, Kansas, and potentially Missouri. And so this is a very big deal, and it's going to definitely impact their political strategy moving forward.
Yeah, and by all accounts, there were Republicans in Indiana in the state Senate who simply didn't like the way the White House was going about pressuring them. And we'll see if that lingers beyond the Indiana borders. Elena Treen at the White House this morning. Thank you.
Indiana State Senator Mike Bohacek is here with me, and thank you, sir, for being here. Just from your view, you're there on the ground. Why do you think the pressure campaign didn't work?
Well, Indiana Republicans are a little bit different. We're a little more traditional. There were folks on both sides of this issue. There was 19 of my colleagues that voted in favor of this, and they felt very, very strongly about it. And the 21 on the other side, we felt a little bit more traditionally that perhaps, that we should look at this redistricting as, not quite as transactional, that this is something that happens every 10 years. And we feel it should continue that way. We don't want to be redistricting every 2 years at the whim of a president's request.
So you were worried basically of the ramifications of pushing something like this through.
It's bad policy, in my opinion, and the opinion of others. It makes the legislative process just too transactional. At least in my opinion, this is not a 2-year presidency. This isn't a 2-year Senate legacy. This is going to go on well after I'm gone and beyond. So let's treat it like that.
Did you ever think that the pressure campaign might work?
I was a little concerned. Obviously the threats of removing resources from your state are always a concern, but we have to also look that many of the funding sources that come from the feds are statutory. Medicaid, SNAP, those are entitlement programs. Those are going to continue to flow. Road funding will continue to flow. Uh, Maybe some discretionary grant funding might become in jeopardy, but then we're going to have to lean on our congressional delegation to make sure that they're doing their jobs to do the best for our citizens of the state of Indiana.
Yeah, and I should be clear, when I say pressure campaign, I'm not just talking about, the president's threat to primary people who voted no, which he did threaten, and I believe you're not up until 2028, right?
That's correct.
But it goes beyond just the politics. I mean, there were bomb threats at your home. Do you believe that was because of this?
Yeah, unfortunately, it was. It was right after Thanksgiving. I had released a post about my displeasure over some the slur that the president used. So we received a bomb threat that night at about 1 o'clock in the morning. Of course, I had to wake up my family. We had to have bomb dogs search property around my house. Since then, my family's been staying with friends. I'm down at the State House now until the end of the week, and they're still not staying at home. So it's very disruptive. I do have small children as well, so it's been a tough couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, I'm really sorry to hear that, and I know when you talk about your family, you referenced what the president had said on Truth Social recently. Was that a factor in your decision here, or what was your response to what the president had to say?
That was one of that was one of many reasons. This is an issue that's gonna there's gonna be a lot of decision points, but that I don't want to call it vulgarity, but it seems vulgar to me to just to use those kind of words where we know that's not appropriate. The appropriate way to describe somebody, appropriate way to reference somebody, and words have consequences. And for me, it was just added to a litany of reasons of why this was just bad policy and not good timing and wasn't deserving of my support.
Are you worried about being on the president's bad side after voting no on this?
Oh, I think I already am, but like I said, I'm not up for reelection for a couple of years, and like everybody else in the Senate, this is not being a senator doesn't define me. This is a part-time legislature. We all go back to our day jobs when we're not here. Once you're not here, once the senator retires, or if you're beaten, or as we like to call involuntarily retired, uh, the chamber continues to move and things continue to happen. So, am I worried about getting beat? Well, if that happens, that happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And if I continue to do a good job and I bring forth good policy, then maybe that won't happen.
State Senator Mike Bohacek, thank you for joining us tonight.